A woman who had hated her body her entire life died at 67. 50 years of dieting, 50 years of shame, 50 years of feeling that she was not who she was supposed to be. And when she came back after 18 minutes of clinical death, the first thing she said to her daughter was not about light and not about peace. She said, "I was beautiful, not in the sense of being young, in the sense that I was exactly who I was supposed to be, and I knew it, without a mirror, without anyone's approval, I just knew." Edgar Cayce described exactly this across dozens of readings. He said that the first thing most souls discover after death is what they could never discover during life, that they were always exactly who they were supposed to be, and that the body they hated were ashamed of, or that betrayed them through illness and limitation, was only a tool, not them. Today, what exactly happens to your body, food, sex, and all physical sensations after death? Not in general terms, with the details Cayce described, and that people who have experienced clinical death have confirmed again and again. Stay with me. Because one moment in this video will change how you think about your body right now, and about what is waiting for you there. Let's start with what happens in the first seconds after the soul leaves the body, because this is where Cayce said something most people don't expect to hear. The first sensation is not weightlessness and not light. The first sensation is the absence of pain. For people who lived with chronic pain their entire lives, this is described as the most overwhelming experience of the entire transition. Not joy, not a reunion with deceased relatives, just silence, where there had been the noise of pain for an entire lifetime. A man who had lived with arthritis for 30 years described it. "I didn't understand at first that I had died. I understood that I wasn't in pain, and that was so unfamiliar that I stopped, just stopped, and stood there, savoring what hadn't existed for 30 years. Cayce said that this is one of the most merciful aspects of the transition, that pain stays with the body, not with the consciousness. Consciousness leaves clean, regardless of how destroyed the physical body was, regardless of how many years of pain it held. But here is what Cayce said next, and this is where the most unexpected part begins. The body on the other side looks the way you know yourself from the inside, not the way others see you, not the way you see yourself in a mirror, but the way you know yourself in your deepest core, in the moment when you are most alive, most genuine, most yourself. Cayce said that people who spent their entire lives feeling they were in the wrong body are finally in the right one there. People who remember themselves as young and vital are young there, not because time has reversed, but because there the body is a literal expression of consciousness. And consciousness chooses the form that is its true expression. A woman blind from birth who was described by Dr. Kenneth Ring from the University of Connecticut could see during her clinical death. Not blurry images, clear ones, specific ones. With details she subsequently described and that were verified, a man who had been unable to walk during his life walked there, ran, jumped, and described it as the return of something that had always been his. His physical body simply hadn't allowed it to manifest. Now, food. And this is where Cayce said something that makes this subject fundamentally different for different people. For most souls, food on the other side exists as pure pleasure, without hunger, without addiction, without consequences. You think of a taste, and the taste is there, instantly, exactly as it was. More than that, Cayce said that taste there is not a chemical sensation, but a direct, energetic reading, without the intermediary of taste buds that during life gave only an approximation of the true taste of something. There, you experience taste directly, fully. What here seemed like good food, there becomes what that food actually is, without the filters of physiology. But for people who during their lives had a complex dependency on food, alcohol or other physical pleasures, the story is different. And this is the part Cayce described with particular seriousness. He called it the realm of unfulfilled desires, not punishment, a literal consequence of what consciousness was at the moment of transition. If consciousness was captured by a craving for the physical, that craving crosses over with it. The memory of the desire is there. The physical body to satisfy it is not. This is exactly why, Cayce said, some souls linger at the border between worlds, not because they are held there by someone else's will, but because their own consciousness holds them there with the craving for what they left behind. These are the souls, those sometimes called ghosts, who try to experience physical sensations through the living, through their bodies, through their emotions, searching for what they themselves can no longer have. This is the most unexpected turn in the entire subject, and this is exactly where things become directly relevant to the life you are living right now. Now, sex. The question everyone thinks and few ask out loud. And Cayce's answer to it is simultaneously the most honest and the most astonishing thing he said on this subject. Physical sex in our understanding does not exist. Physical bodies do not exist. But here is what he said next. What replaces physical intimacy on the other side is described by those who experienced it as something so much more intense that the comparison causes them difficulty. Cayce called it the merging of consciousnesses, the literal contact of two informational fields. When you know another person from the inside, completely, without words, without the ability to hide or pretend, when you feel not only their physical presence, but their entire being, every thought, every memory, every shade of who they are, and they feel the same in you, simultaneously, completely. A real story. A man, 48 years old, cardiac arrest, 12 minutes without a pulse. In his NDE, he described a meeting with a woman he had loved and lost 20 years earlier. Not a meeting in our sense of the word, a merging. He said, "I knew her from the inside in a way I had never known her in 15 years of life together. I felt every moment when I had caused her pain, through her pain, and every moment when she had loved me, through her love. Not from the outside, from the inside. It was 1,000 times more intimate than anything that had ever existed between us physically, because physical intimacy is the touching of two bodies that still remain separate. There, the boundaries disappear." Cayce said that physical intimacy is an attempt by two physical beings to reach exactly this, and that it always remains only an approximation of what is fully possible only there. But the most unexpected part was still to come. Cayce said that this is exactly why, precisely because intimacy there means complete mutual knowing, it is impossible to bring a mask there. Impossible to be who you are pretending to be here. There you are exactly who you actually are, without filters, without defensive mechanisms, without the stories you told about yourself. Only what is genuinely inside. And this is what you meet those you loved with, and this is what they see in you. For people who during their lives built genuine connections, this is described as the most beautiful moment of the entire experience, to be seen completely and to be loved exactly as that. For people who spent their lives hiding behind masks, this is the moment of greatest vulnerability, because the mask stays here, with the body, and you go there alone. Now, what Cayce said about music, because this is the aspect of sensory experience after death that people who have experienced near death describe with such unanimity that ignoring it is impossible. Music on the other side is described as something that has no equivalent in the physical world, not because it is more complex or more beautiful in a technical sense, but because it is perceived not through ears, but directly, with the entire being. Cayce said that their sound is not airwaves interpreted by the brain, but a direct vibration of consciousness. Where you don't hear the music, you become part of it for a moment. You merge with it. This is described as one of the most intense experiences of the first period on the other side. Musicians who experienced near death returned with descriptions of harmonies that don't exist in human music. Not because they are better, but because they are fundamentally different, born from a different way of consciousness existing. And now finally what unites everything, food, sex, the body, music, and all other earthly sensations, into one picture that changes how you look at your life right now. Cayce said, everything you experience physically here is an approximation of what consciousness experiences there. The taste of food here is a filtered version of that direct, energetic reading that is possible there. Physical intimacy here is an attempt by two limited bodies to reach that complete merging that is possible there. Music here is a weakened version of that direct vibration that is possible there. We live in a world of translations and interpretations. Everything we feel passes through biological filters that inevitably lose something. There, the filters disappear, and the experience that here seemed complete reveals itself to have been only a hint, a shadow, an approximation of something far greater. This doesn't mean that physical sensations here don't matter. It means that they are the first language in which consciousness learns to speak, and there, it finally speaks with its full voice. The woman who hated her body her entire life came back and told her daughter, "I was beautiful, not because everyone is beautiful in the same way there, but because there she finally saw herself as she actually was, without the distortions created by 50 years of comparing herself to other people's standards, without the noise of other people's voices telling her who she should be, only her, only what had been real in her all along." Cayce would say, she always was exactly that. Here it just couldn't be seen. There, it was visible immediately. Write in the comments, is there a physical sensation in your life, the taste of a particular food, the smell of a moment, the touch of a person, that you would want to experience there again? Not in the sense of addiction, in the sense of something that was so real that you know it was genuine. Because perhaps that is exactly what Cayce meant when he said that the best moments of this life are signposts to what awaits there. Not a reward for good behavior, but a literal foretaste